ZJB.
Welcome.
You've got taste.
Morning to all our listeners, to Radio Montserrat ZJB, and to those who are joining us live stream on ZJB Radio Spirit of Montserrat. Welcome to this press conference with the UK Budgetary Support Team mission, and we'll also have Your Excellency, the Governor, Harriet Cross, and also Premier, the Honorable Reuben Mead, with us today. We have this press conference, and we have with us Malika McKenzie from Aliogana Express, and joining me is Keola Green, James White Jr., and we are expected to be joined by both Jeevan Robinson and Nerissa Golden. Jeevan is of MNI Media and Nerissa of Discover Montserrat. And first of all, in the essence of time, we are going to ask Nicholas Weeram, who is, Nick, you are the Deputy Director of the Overseas Territories and Polar Regions Directorate at the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO. So in the essence of time, as I mentioned before, just give us a summary of your deliberations for this week, and then later we'll engage Your Excellency and the Honourable Premier.
Well, thank you. So the purpose of the Budget Support Mission is to build understanding of where Montserrat is and where Montserrat wants to get to. And I think we've had very, very good discussions to help us get that deeper understanding. And you need that understanding if you want to build a deeper partnership. We've been able to better understand the government's priorities and better understand how support from the UK government can make a real difference in investing in Montserrat so that we can build up the private sector, increase economic development on the island, and also make sure we're providing essential services for the community.
Indeed. Your Excellency?
Well, it's been a real pleasure to have the Foreign Office team here. As you know, a good portion of Montserrat's budget is provided by the Foreign Office, by the UK government. And so this is part of their understanding of Montserrat to help them determine, partly to help them be ambassadors for Montserrat within the UK government, because then they will be able to take back, look, this is what's going on, this is where help is most needed, this is the progress that's been made. And I've been really impressed with the conversations that have happened this week.
Indeed. And Premier?
Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm just here as a spectator, as usual.
You know that we are not allowing you to be a spectator.
Oh, okay.
We are going to quiz you.
No, I'm happy to be here. Nick and the team have been having discussions, and what's important is that the public service, the officials in government, spent a lot of time preparing the documentation, which was sent off to the Foreign Office before the mission. And then you use that now for presentation so that Nick and his team could ask questions and get clarifications as to what has been done. So I want to go right into it and say a huge thank you to the entire staff across government, of course, and the governor and the deputy governor for the kind of support which has been given, and to Nick and his team for the manner in which those discussions were conducted.
Indeed. Thank you very much. And straight away, we are going to go into questions. And Keola?
No, if I may, could we just ask Nick to give an overview of what they were doing, what they were looking for, and the expectations?
Okay.
And then we can then go into questions. That would at least give a backdrop to your questioning.
Okay. So Nick, go right ahead. Yeah.
Absolutely, Premier. So as I say, it's about understanding. And the reason for that is because we're very, very fortunate that last year Montserrat, there was a suggestion that Montserrat might have stopped qualifying as an ODA eligible territory. And the UK worked very closely with the government of Montserrat to make the argument that that wasn't appropriate, and we were successful. But with Montserrat still being ODA eligible, there is a lot of pressure back in the UK on the ODA budget. It's going to be 0.3% of GNI going forward. And the government has been absolutely clear that protecting the overseas territories within that budget is a priority for the UK government because of our responsibilities to a place like Montserrat. But that does mean that there is a lot of scrutiny. Montserrat is likely to be one of the top 5 biggest bilateral programs that the Foreign Office is doing around the world. And so the discussions we had with the public service, and I'd echo what the Premier said, it was very welcome, all the hard work that the public service has been doing to prepare for these discussions, allows us to respond to that scrutiny, to show, as I say, where the good work has been done in recent years, but also where the plans are for making transformational investments. With development work in the UK, like a lot of nations now, we want to be making sure we're having the attitude of an investor, not a donor. So we're trying to make investments that are going to build greater self-sufficiency. And that's something I think that Montserrat wants and the UK wants. So it's working together in partnership to make those investments the most effective they can be. And the work this week was all towards that end. And I think it was very, very helpful to be able to go into some of the detail of some of the plans in specific sectors, understanding where financial support, but also expert support and where a willingness to look at doing things differently can make the biggest difference.
Indeed. Okay, so Keola, Malaika? Okay, Keola.
All right. Good morning once again. Keola Green from Radio Montserrat. And my question to you, Nicholas, just to follow up, having gotten that brief this week, how pleased or how would you grade Montserrat's level?
So I think it was really good to see where there's been a lot of progress. For instance, I think we're very aware that it's not just about budget support, it's also about capital investment. And we were able to visit the hospital project, which we're seeing is making real progress. It's very exciting to see that hospital building emerging from the ground. It's very good to go and visit the cultural centre, which is now looking very close to being fully renovated, and getting a sense of the pride that the project team feels and how that is going to be something that is going to contribute to pride in the community. So I think those things are an important building block. And then within the areas that we were talking about within the budget support mission, seeing areas where there are complementary plans. So for instance, the health transformation program that is being prepared, that goes hand in hand with the hospital project so that we can be delivering better services to the community. Or speaking to the government about their plans for economic development and understanding how we are looking, for instance, at offering more support to people to try and export goods from Montserrat to the rest of the region. I think all these things were really, really good signs of progress that has been made, but clearly there is more that we need to do. And this week is all about understanding how we can do that most effectively.
Okay, and before I pass on to either Malaika or James, this financial framework is structured based off of a 3-year plan. My question is, wouldn't it be easier on part of both the government and the FCDO for it to run on a 5-year plan concurrently with, our political terms, making it more easier and, ensuring greater policy continuity where government is concerned?
Actually, in recent years, some of the budget support to Montserrat has been on a 1-year basis. And actually, that's one of the things that the Premier and the Montserratian government have been saying, and I heard it also from the opposition, that a bit more continuity would be helpful. And we certainly recognise that. So going back, it's something we need to confirm back in London, but I think we've clearly heard the case for a multi-annual allocation. I think a 3-year plan is probably what would be possible, given also the terms of parliaments in the UK. But having that 3-year certainty, I think, can also make a big difference to economic development, because when you have that certainty, then you can start to build relationships with investors where they have a clear sense of where the Montserrat government is going over a number of years.
Okay, but do you think that this shortened period could have hampered the sort of development and growth that could have happened in Montserrat had it, been a longer period for, giving governments more time to focus on development?
remember, we're coming from a 1 year budgetary cycle. So you're asking for us to make a huge jump from 1 to 5. Remember, the ODA eligibility could also stop somewhere within that framework. So a 3-year framework is not a bad move at this particular time. We can work towards 5, but having done the assessment over 3 years, then you'll make a determination as to the way forward. The second thing is that we're linked to the UK budget system. And if the economy moves up or moves down, then they would want to have the ability to make the adjustments. And additionally, the 3-year sums which we may have approved is not cast in stone. So based on evaluations, the monitoring, they can be adjusted. Okay? And there are other sources of investments which we have to look at, rather than focusing all of our attention on UK budgetary support. We also have to look at building a vibrant private sector so that we can now generate money for ourselves as we used to do before the volcano.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Premier. And Nick, of course, we do have Nerissa Golden online. Nerissa?
Good morning. Can
Good
everyone hear me?
morning. Yes, we are hearing you.
Okay, wonderful. Good day.
No, I'm not hearing Nerissa.
Montserrat. Good day, Governor Cross,
good
Premier
morning.
Meade, and Mr.
Are you
Wareham.
hearing her?
Morning.
This question is for Mr. Wareham and probably Premier as well. Currently, there is a comprehensive review of the public service compensation framework. Did this come up in conversation in terms of how this would fit into whether the next budget cycle or plans for integrating and ensuring that the public service is adequately compensated? Was this discussed in these meetings?
So we had a very comprehensive discussion about how to make sure that we retain the best staff in the public service and also bring in staff into public service. And clearly compensation is a part of that. But I think it's also about looking at it holistically, looking at how you can speed up sometimes some of the processes for bringing people in, because sometimes that doesn't help. And looking also at, once you're in the public service, at how you can invest in training and development, because that is also really, really important for making sure that people who are in the public service can get the best out of their careers. And we met some really, really committed public servants during the week who had worked very, very hard, as the Premier has said. And it's meeting them and seeing how passionate they are about their work and about their community that gives a lot of reassurance to us and is also very inspiring to see.
But we also have to add that Ernst & Young have been contracted to do a review of the compensation packages within government. So that is a consultancy that's currently taking place, and that would guide any decisions as it relates to compensation across the public service.
Premier, just by way of giving an outlook, we have this evolving, the evolving needs of Montserrat, and how targeted is this particular mission to ensuring that we make that impact going forward?
Well, every department every ministry had an opportunity to make a presentation to the FCDOT. So they would have decided where their focus was. Now, it's not just a one-off presentation. Whatever went to the FCDO would have come to cabinet before.
Right.
And before even reaching to cabinet, presentations had to be made to the ministers. So you had to have clearance from the minister first, clearance from cabinet, before anything was sent off to the Foreign Office.
Okay.
And if I might add, I don't think it should be seen as a one-off conversation this week either. This is an evolving conversation. We had a team here back in October for a mid-year review. We'll be back in 6 months for another mid-year review. if we're going to make progress together, we need to be building that progress incrementally, step by step, and we need to be working in partnership throughout that process. So one of the real benefits of a week like this is also building those relationships with the ministers, with the PSs and their teams. And it's those relationships that then allow you to build a sense of common priorities that you can then move towards over time.
Yeah,
And maybe
yes.
I'd just jump in to say that I would absolutely confirm that all the priority issues were discussed during this week. We wanted to make sure that the Foreign Office got a really good sense of what the challenges are, what the risks are, and then what the opportunities are as well. And I think we covered the full range of those.
Aligning with the UK's plans and objectives as well.
Yes, to a certain extent, but I think the starting point is Montserrat's needs and challenges. Because as we said, the Foreign Office starting point is its obligations to Montserrat. So that's its priority, that's the starting point. But then you will look at things like, one example is safeguarding, which is a really good example of where the Foreign Office takes that really seriously and wants to know that Montserrat is looking after its women and girls and most vulnerable people, the elderly, for example. So that was also a topic that came up actually through a number of different presentations. So that's a good example of a common objective and priority.
But also to add, although Nick is based in the UK with his team, they're part of Team Montserrat.
Indeed.
Okay? So we don't want to look at them as Foreign Office representatives. They're Team Montserrat. So when they go back to the UK, they now have to make a presentation on our behalf to the other officials in the UK. Okay, so I just want to get that clarification there. And we have very, very open contact with our UK-based members of the team.
Okay.
Okay, so I just want to make that clarification.
Indeed.
They're not here as FCDO representatives. They're here as Team Montserrat representatives.
Premier, good morning, everyone. Premier, you earlier mentioned about us getting to self-sufficiency. In what sectors do you see the greatest opportunity for Montserrat to achieve measurable self-sufficiency?
Well, we have to look at building the private sector. If you were to go into Victor's supermarket, you will see that there's a shelf, an entire shelf or section, which has made in Montserrat products. That means that our small manufacturers are in a position to display their products and have sales rather than driving around in their vehicles trying to make sales. So that's a start. There will be 2 other supermarkets, and I think possibly 3 other establishments coming on board in the next 3 months or so, which will give greater impact in terms of those products. Link that now with the soft loan scheme, and all the persons were talking about the soft loan scheme, it should have been a grant. There's a huge number of persons already making applications for those soft loans. What's the benefit of the soft loan scheme? It's linking training, marketing, packaging, and the whole like with the scheme. So it means that working alongside the small business committee or small loans committee, it's a hand-holding exercise. We've already identified markets in St. Martin for some products. We've identified markets in Antigua for some products. So it means that once we get them export ready, then we'll be in a position to move to those smaller markets. We're not looking at the international market, but we have to look at our neighboring territories. Some other products will be agricultural products as well, because we can, and let me use my favorite fruit, breadfruit is easily saleable in St. Martin, and they're paying in US dollars. So once we harvest them, clean them up properly, we have a big market in St. Martin already. How do we get them there? There's a refrigerated vessel that will be coming to Montserrat, dropping off cargo on a regular basis. we're negotiating with them a back rate. In other words, you're going back empty. Could you take these across for us on a concessionary basis? Additional to that, we're looking at hotel development. One of the packages is the Little Bay development. There's another package in the Viewpoint area, which includes a golf course. And there's also another one in Woodlands area. So these are the three packages which we are rolling out, and these will roll out within the next few weeks. The third element is the one with a spa operation, because we will be in a position to sell that product very easily on the market, and we're already in touch with a potential investor there. The fourth one is geothermal or energy, where we're looking at the development of our geothermal resources, not necessarily to generate electricity for Montserrat, but to generate electricity to create another industry, which will then lead to increased tax benefits to the government of Montserrat. When you link all of these together, we will then be in a position to generate more of our money and be less reliant on the Foreign Office for support. We're hoping to at least get back to where we were many years ago when we were self-sufficient and we did not need budgetary aid.
And so what I'm gathering is that one of the main focus for this budget support mission was reducing Montserrat's reliance on FCD, on budget aid. And so my question is, noting that in the past there are, or even now, there are opportunities that Montserrat can't tap into, bearing in mind that, we're overseas territory, is there plans to sort of slacken or relax some of those requirements or barrings?
Let me answer that, and then Nick will come in here. Historically, we couldn't tap into certain sources. Working with CARICOM and OECS, we're insisting that Montserrat is a full member of CARICOM and as a full member of OECS. When they're going to the international community for funding, other than bilateral funding, that Montserrat must be included in a carve-out on behalf of Montserrat. The same thing is happening with the central bank, where funding is being looked at in terms of the big push, which is something we'll discuss afterwards. And we have asked specifically for a carve-out for the overseas territories. Overseas territories, in the case of ECCB, would be Anguilla and Montserrat only. BVI is not a member of the ECCB. Okay, so that's where we're looking at it. So, Nick?
Yeah. So it's not about what the UK does or doesn't allow Montserrat to do. As the Premier has said, Montserrat is building those links with CARICOM and making sure that they're maximising possibilities there. The point from the UK side is that we are committed to supporting Montserrat as much as Montserrat needs that support. But what we're trying to do is work with the government of Montserrat, as the Premier has said, to reduce that dependence over time, because that's a shared objective. But we see using the private sector, using links in CARICOM, the advantages of being in this region where you can learn from others as well, as a big part of the way we're going to achieve that. And where the UK can then offer specific support as well, then that becomes part of the picture. And so it's building all this support together that is going to allow Montserrat to move forward.
One other example is the Blue Belt work that's been going on. I mean, that's a really good example of where Montserrat officials and government have worked really hard to get to a stage when they are going to be eligible for Blue Belt membership before too much longer. And that comes with some really great funding opportunities and support opportunities. So that's developing the marine environment, support to fisher folk, looking at tourist opportunities in the water as well. So I think that's something to look forward to in the year ahead.
Nerissa, we haven't forgotten you. Are you still with us?
Yes, I've got a question for the Premier. Premier Mead, I was wondering if you could give us an update in terms of sharing what you've shared with the others about the status of the port project. And also, I'm wondering if any consideration has been given to going to probably dusting off the original port plan, which talked about having a designated breakwater rather than the current design, which has which really and truly doesn't take into consideration the issues with the ocean and the waves in that area.
You're opening up a totally different kind of worms. There are certain aspects of the port which we can't discuss publicly because of legal issues, other than to say that we are trying our very best to get the project going. And that's as far as I'll go on the port. It's an inherited situation. Nerissa, you'd remember back in 2014 that we had an arrangement with Dubai Ports. And this is a problem with recycling politicians. I happen to have been the premier at the time when the equivalent of $100 million was offered the government of Montserrat, and I flatly declined it for the project at that particular site. Dubai Ports was at the point of building a port in Montserrat. The port was fully designed and paid for. The design was fully designed and paid for. We were ready to rock and roll on it. Again, in consultation with our partners in the UK. It was not a loan, it was a special project funded by Dubai Ports, which would have brought money into Montserrat. Unfortunately, the government that came into office at the time turned around and said they do not want any Arabs in Montserrat. We now have to clear that up. We've waited 12 years. We're hoping to go back to Dubai. I had contact in St. Kitts at the CARICOM heads meeting with the Dubai authorities who are visiting for that meeting. And I'm hoping that by mid-year, we should have further discussions to see whether or not we can re-engage them on developments in Montserrat. Nerissa, I hope that answers the question.
Partially. I was just wondering from an FCDO perspective, I know there are contract issues and things like that, but it seems fundamentally that a big part of the the problem is that we actually accepted a port that was way below what we need and what really can handle the capacity and challenges of that area. Is there a scope for going back to the drawing table, as it will, to really look at the entire project versus trying to get delivery on something that may actually not be possible?
Well, the contractual obligations, and as I said, I will not go further than to say we're trying our very best with the current contractors, and I'm not at liberty to speak about any legal matters which may come up or which may be in train. Nick?
The only thing I'd add is the we there is all of us.
Yeah.
Government of Montserrat, the team from the Foreign Office in the UK, we're all Team Montserrat, and working with our partners in the Caribbean Development Bank. We're all trying to push forward to make as much progress as we can.
Nerissa, we'll take another one from you at this time before we engage other members of the press.
Sure, thank you very much. Premier, one more for you. The UK government is super big on transparency and access to public information. Montserrat still hasn't passed their Public Information Act. And also currently you are responsible for information, and information coming out of the entire government has actually been quite sporadic. And the public would literally have to follow about 10 or more different social accounts to be able to keep abreast of what's happening. What is the plan, and was there any discussion within the budget framework for looking at really bolstering the government information unit to ensure that we are improving communication to the public?
No, that is not a matter for the FCDO team. That's a matter for local government. And I can assure you we're working on a reorganization of the ZGB team so that we can have more focused information going out to the public. As it relates to legislation, I know you're absolutely clear on the fact that there's a raft of legislation that has to be done, but we have to deal with them in priority order. Remember, we're only in government for a year and a bit, so we can't get everything done. We can't get a 5-year program done within 14 months. But yes, these are things which are on the legislative agenda, but we'll just have to wait for them to reach the stage where they can come to the public.
Quickly, Premier Nick, both of you can come in. In terms of, access infrastructure, air and sea connectivity, what was gleaned and discussed through your deliberations?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that the budget support team and I experienced the challenges. We missed our Fly Montserrat flights because of delayed flights from the UK, and I know that's an experience that many Montserratians will be familiar with. So we saw the challenges of access. We saw how important access is, but we were also discussing how the government is planning to diversify access routes, and that is with UK support. The UK has been ring-fencing support for access for a number of years, and that makes a big difference to trying to set up new air routes, where we've now seen new air routes coming online. And of course, we also recognise that if we can get a maritime route up and running, that would make a huge difference as well. So this is something where we and the government are agreed, and we're pushing forward together.
Premier,
But
you have your
on
plans.
the basis of transparency, we didn't set up for them to to have their flight delayed. And that overnight, for absolute transparency.
Yeah, but your views.
No, we're working as hard as we can, but one of the things is that we have to look at the challenges. Whereas persons will blame the Premier for not having certain things in place, I don't have the authority to do a lot of things that people think I have the authority to do. So, for example, a ferry, I can't participate in the project. It has to go through the procurement system, and they are the ones who follow up and keep me posted.
Right.
I know that there will be a ferry question coming up. I'll deal with that afterwards.
And then maybe I'll jump in and say then I've got a role in access in terms of safety and security. So, with both flights and the ferry, I will liaise with ASI, the international air company that makes sure that we follow the air safety, and similarly with maritime. And maybe I'll just throw in that as well as access conversations, we did have some conversations about Medivacs as well during this session, again, trying to work out how we can improve the service that currently exists.
Where we are?
Well, I think we've definitely made progress. So one strand of work is about night flying, because of course flights cannot take off after dusk at the moment. So if you've got a Medivac emergency at 10 o'clock at night, it is not possible for a plane to leave at the moment. And actually we've worked out that with a bit of extra infrastructure, and we think that we will be able to find the funds to do that, then we should be able to, for emergency purposes, a Fly Montserrat flight should be able to depart between the hours of 6 p.m. and midnight, and again from 5 a.m. I hope that might be possible in the coming months. So we're closer to that than we've ever been before, which is really promising.
You've done some site visits. The port, the hospital, the airport control tower, Shinlan's solar project. Which project is now considered the most urgent? And what timeline can the public expect for visual progress?
Is that a question for
It could
me?
be for anyone.
Really?
I think all of these projects contribute in different ways, and some of these projects are very, very complex. And it's true in the UK as well. Doing complex construction projects can take time. You have to get the right team, you have to have the right relationships in place, and that's even more the case in a place like Montserrat where you're importing all the materials. Sometimes it can be hard to see where the progress is until you get to the final stages. But the Cultural Centre, we went around that project, and that has made progress very quickly, and very soon will be a place that the whole community can enjoy. The hospital, I think, is a major investment. That is going to be a major focus of UK support next year. And I think we can see there the progress they are making is remarkable. And so the more projects we can get like this, the better. I think finally to talk about Shinlands, I mean, it's a wonderful site, but seeing how that can soon be bringing in solar energy, which reduces the costs of importing fuel into Montserrat, and actually makes Montserrat a bit of a leader in the region in terms of green energy. I think that's something also that the community will then be able to be proud of, and that will have real benefits for people.
And I'll just throw in a different angle, if I may, about urgency. One of the other things we did was we went in one of the new police boats to have a look at the exclusion zone from the sea, and that is quite a vulnerable area. You know, there's a possibility for people to traffic people or drugs or goods, and what is really positive to see is that Police Commissioner has now got infrastructure. So we're thinking about drones, for example, in future CCTV and the boats. There will be more eyes on that exclusion zone than ever before, which will help protect Montserrat from the potential for transnational organised crime to get in there. So that is an urgent piece of work, but it's underway, and again, really positive progress has been made.
The other issue is why 31st of March as a timeline for most of those projects. Other than the hospital, the funding ends at March 31st. So we've been pushing, unlike normal capital projects, these funds came with their own timelines for terminal disbursement dates. So we've been pushing very, very hard to get those projects completed as closely as possible by March 31st. There's some which will carry over into the new year, into the new financial year, but we're trying to minimize the amount of work and the value of work that goes over, because that will then have to come out of our recurrent budget. And we've been working with Nick and his group to see how best we can get that done.
Health and education transformation. What practical changes will residents actually experience by 2028? We know that health and education, those two always in kind of a
that's a long discussion, and I know that Minister Buffon is always available to have that discussion. So I would ask you to reserve that question for Minister Buffon when she comes online.
I absolutely agree with that. It's far too complex, and we got into some of this. But just to add that there are NHS teams on island this week looking at educating nurses, looking at doing a health needs assessment for the island and also the prison. So there's a lot of engagement from the UK on the health side in particular. So that's definitely something to get an update from the Minister on.
Premier, can you tell us 2 or 3 policy or even investment decisions that came out of this week that you think would really strengthen our economy going forward?
No, this week was not about decisions. This week was about discussions, and this week was about discussions, evaluations. We cannot speak to commitments at this stage.
All right.
Now, what I would urge is that Nick from the UK team, Montserrat, is here for a short period. So let's try and catch him in terms of what questions you may have for him. No, because you have me always. And I can assure you, I will even stay back after we finish this part of it to deal with some other issues in terms of CARICOM and ECCB.
You mentioned green energy, Nick, and the Premier has always been pushing this as well. We have some projects ongoing, a wastewater project and so on, undergrounding for electricity and water. Geothermal, what are some of the discussions centered around geothermal, for instance?
We're still awaiting a report from the Oxford Institute. But one of the preliminary findings is that we should be able to generate up to about 18 megawatts of power. We're in discussions with a potential investor, and I call it a potential investor, where we're asking them before they try to commit, put your foot on the ground. Mr. Google can't give you everything. put your foot on the ground, come and visit before you start trying to make such huge financial decisions. So we're hoping that that grouping should be here possibly within the next month. And as I say, hoping that they will be here possibly in the next month.
Nick?
I think there's two things that are really important in energy policy, right? Are resilience and diversity. So resilience, that's where the undergrounding is really, really important, because as the Premier always likes to remind us, we all know how vulnerable communities in the Caribbean can be to hurricanes. And so that's really, really important. But then diversity is also important, and that's where getting more solar online and that playing a role alongside geothermal actually means that Montserrat is really well placed to have a diverse sources of energy, and that will make the biggest difference to how easily accessible energy is for the community in the future.
And so, Nick, what would your report back to the UK look like? What would your discussions from this week look like for persons who don't understand the process? What happens now after the budget support mission?
It's a really good question, and it's really important to explain this because I think understanding is two-way. So it's also about you understanding what happens when Team Montserrat returns to the UK. In terms of trying to develop the plans that we now are going to be putting forward, we have to get a business case approved by UK ministers and also by the investment committee in the Foreign Office, who reviews all business cases for major investments like the support we give to Montserrat. And their focus is, as I said, about showing that is an investment case that is going to be generating greater self-sufficiency over time. So we will be preparing a business case, and then we will also be making sure that the Minister Doughty for the Overseas Territories is in conversation with the Premier. And it will be the robustness of those plans that are being scrutinised by the Minister and by the committee. And when they are satisfied that the plans are sufficiently well prepared, that's when we can then move forward with actually implementing them.
And it comes out of evaluating how well we have done or not done over the past year from the resources which were provided. So that comes into the submission which will be made. Because you can't just look at going forward, you also have to look at how well have we performed or have not performed, which will bolster the argument. And as I keep saying, data. All of this thing is data-driven. So if we don't produce the data, then the argument becomes much more difficult when the business cases are presented.
Yeah. Nerissa, you're still with us? Nerissa?
I am.
So go ahead if you have another question. Are you hearing me?
Okay. Sorry, there's a delay. I guess Keola's already asked the one I wanted to know. What can we expect next coming out of this session, Premier? Anything we can look for? You can tease us with your budget coming up, speech coming up soon.
What I can say, it will be an interesting budget.
Will breadfruit be mentioned?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Breadfruit
I'm
has
happy.
to be mentioned. See, interestingly, Prime Minister Motley has declared the breadfruit to be a superfood and a national food for Barbados. So I'll leave it at that.
You're running with that. Okay, so
You've always been a trendsetter. Thank you.
final questions at this time. Keola, go ahead.
Right, and so to wrap up, Premier, my question goes to you. Noting that we're having the budget mission here at the end of February, can we anticipate an budget presentation that would be on schedule, or should we expect some delays?
No, we will have the budget on schedule. We're hoping that a budget presentation will be early April. We're gonna have a bit of slippage because of some personal family issues which I have, so I have to go and deal with that. So once I get back on island, we'll be ready for the budget. Clearly, while I'm overseas, I will still be working with the team here because given the technology, you're never far from information or working with a team remotely.
Okay, Premier, for you, what assurance can you give the people of Montserrat that this strategic dialogue will result in tangible, visible outcomes? That's a summary of it.
I have full faith in the relationship which we've developed with the Foreign Office, FCDO, over the past year and a half. I have a direct line to the minister, so if I need to speak with him, I'll just pick up the phone and call him. I don't need to go through a secretary or anybody. I can WhatsApp him or I can call him directly. So he knows my position. I always tease him and say he understands us more because he's also from an overseas territory, in the sense that he's from Wales. And my second home is actually in Wales. So I'm within his constituency. So I'm fully confident that working together, we will have a good support in terms of what will be presented in the budget. There will, however, be a baseline budget until we can get a full response from HMG, and we can always do supplementary appropriations later in the year.
Yeah, I was coming to that in terms of timing, Nick. How soon will we hear back from HMG as to the way that we are going to go forward?
So we know the Premier wants to do the budget in early April. We're working with the government of Montserrat to make sure that the government's in a position to do that. But then, as I say, I think it's also not just about looking about one budget, 1 year. It's about looking at the plan for the whole 3 years.
That's right.
And it's not about just this week. It's about a conversation about moving forward with that plan and then continuous improvement over the course of those 3 years. So the conversation then will be turning to, well, what are you trying to deliver over different periods, and then consistent review and then iterating. So I think it's a conversation and a partnership that's going to be going on for many years.
Yeah. Your Excellency?
It's been a really good week. I think we have achieved all our objectives. We've spoken to lots of different people. We had a group of private sector, small business men and women around at my house earlier this week. So the Foreign Office team have been exposed to a really broad range of Montserratian actors and stakeholders. So I'm really pleased and look forward to the continuing dialogue.
Premier?
Well, it has been a very tiring week. You know that we had CARICOM heads in St. Kitts, so it meant flipping across to St. Kitts for pretty much a 24-hour visit. But it was very important to get back here to work with the team. In St. Kitts, it wasn't just going and doing the opening ceremony. We had caucus immediately after the opening ceremony, and that generally goes very long into the night. And also we had a caucus of the OECS at 7 o'clock the following morning, then a meeting at 9 o'clock remotely with the team here in Montserrat until my flight took off. So it has been a rough week. I can say that the relationships that we've developed with the UK arm of Team Montserrat has been very good. This is Nick's first time to Montserrat. I think he appreciates Montserrat more now that he's seen it for himself rather than through Mr. Google. And we're expecting that the relationship will continue, the dialogue will continue, and we'll have something to present to the public in due course. You know me, I do not believe that any business or any government should operate without starting their financial year with a budget And it is why I'm aiming to have an early April presentation, and that we're hoping to stick to.
Well, listen, we want to say thank you so much to Nick for, coming here and for, giving us, some feedback as to the discussions, Your Excellency. We always appreciate your input. And of course, Premier Mead, we know that you're just a visit away or a phone call away, that we can, touch base with you to get an update. We want to say thank you to Nerissa as well for joining us today as part of our press corps. Keola and Malaika, who are here to asking questions and to get deep as to what we expect. Premier, want to say something? Go ahead.
No, this is for Lenny as well.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to cut and take a 5-minute break so that the governor and Nick can leave.
Okay.
And then we'll have a discussion on CARICOM, OECS, and ECCB matters.
Okay, at your direction, sir. Lenny?
This is ZJB Radio Montserrat, the big sound from a little island.